Hey peeps, welcome to today's video where I will be talking you through the making of my best friend's 40th birthday present, which was a double wedding ring quilt using the pattern Rings That Bind by Phillips Fibre art. I'd had this quilt in mind for ages and I'd asked Natasha what kind of fabric she'd like, and she picked out these ones, which is a really beautiful colour palette. And I also decided to film the whole process because I wanted to see how long it would take me. I'd be really interested to see the time lapse of everything, and also I thought for posterity, because it is, as I say, a 40th birthday present for my best friend, I thought it might be something that she would enjoy seeing what went into making, hopefully something that she absolutely loves and keeps forever and ever. So first up, I had to cut out all the fabric pieces using the pattern, as I say, it's Rings That Bind by Phillips Fibre art. I needed to cut out, I decided to do the lap quilt, which is 64 inches square, which meant that I had 25 individual rings to cut out. So I started off cutting out the backing fabric, then the arcs, all 120 of them, and then the middle fabric, which is this marble batik that you can see here. Clearly I needed to change the blade in my rotary cutter, and for some reason I just powered through with an incredibly dull blade, which yeah, don't do that. Yeah, definitely don't do that. Learn from my mistakes. So yeah, I had lots and lots and lots of prep work with this quilt. Basically that's what quilts are, is lots and lots of prep and then lots and lots of repetition. But as I said, it's something I've had in mind for ages, so I didn't mind doing that, and it was really nice sort of seeing it come together. So here, this is the backing, or the back of the quilt, and it's a really beautiful seafoam green colour from Kona cotton, and I am just pre-prepping all of the squares to then get ready to cut them down into circles. And it's a really different way of doing a double wedding ring. You can piece the arcs, and that's what I did with the very first quilt that I ever made, was a pieced arc double wedding ring. But I decided with this one, because there was going to be so much stitching, decorative stitching and embroidery, I decided to use a very simple colour palette of solid coloured fabrics, which would hopefully make the end decorative result stand out, which I think has worked. So yeah, this whole quilt is done with this one tool, which is called the Arc Ease tool, and it does everything. It cuts out the base circles, it cuts out the individual arcs, it does the batting for the scalloped edges. It's totally brilliant. I first saw this pattern on Kay Wood's channel, and there she had the lady from Phillips Fibre art on demonstrating this pattern, and she thought it up because she had to make both of her daughters were getting married in the same year, and they both asked for double wedding ring quilts, and she wanted an easier way of doing it, so she came up with this tool, and thank goodness that she did. There's no way I'd be able to do it otherwise. So here I'm prepping the back fabric for the scallops, and as I mentioned before, this tool does all of them. So there it is, cutting out the scallops, which will make the decorative edge of the quilt, and there it is cutting out the batting that goes in them. There's little lines on the tool for the different pieces that you need to cut out, so it takes off the seam allowances for the different pieces. As I said, ever so clever. So yeah, like I say, lots and lots and lots of prep work, and then lots and lots of repetition. It took me a good couple of days to get all this done and prepped, but finally everything was ready for sewing. And again, I decided to film that, so I had set up my camera in my sewing room and started. So first off, you sew the arcs together, and this is so much fun to watch. I wish it was this quick in real life. This took forever, but yeah, look at me go, like speed sewing. I love it. So you sew the arcs together, you then split them apart, you then sew a pair to another pair, and once you've sewn the pairs to the pairs, you then sew the final bit close, and you end up with a ring. once you have the ring, you first you need to do a lot more prep work, which is ironing. So you press all the seams open, and then you need to turn the inner edge down by 1/4 of an inch. And this is going to be the finished edge that you top stitch down to finish off the arc on the backing circle. So yeah, you have to do that 25 times, which is a whole bunch of fun. Yeah, and I managed to steam the camera up quite a few times, as you can just about tell from that. So yeah, once the circles are pressed, you pin them to the base circles the right way around, which I didn't do to begin with. Yeah, right sides together. So pin them all down, and as I say, I wish it had gone this fast in real life, because it was a very, very slow process. Once they're all pinned, you then sew them down with a 1/4 inch seam allowance, as is the rule for all quilting, it seems, 1/4 inch for everything, which is very strange to come to after having done a lot of dressmaking. These look like pizzas to me. I don't know why. I think it might be the diagonal lines, but yeah, they look like pizzas. Chiana absolutely insists on fluffing all fabric that I let her anywhere near. And whilst this is fine for Natasha, who has her own feline overlord, I don't actually let any Chiana next to any customer fabric that's going out to customers. Nobody needs to have the extra grey fluff, no matter how beautiful, plus people might be allergic, so Chi only comes into the sewing room when I'm making either stuff for myself or stuff for people who love cats as much as Natasha does. Anyway, moving on, once everything has been pressed, you then top stitch the circles to the backing fabric, and again, this is just looking like lots of spinning pizza to me. Maybe I'm hungry, maybe I need to eat. Once that's all done, you then need to turn them into blocks. They make 12-inch blocks, I believe, and so you may have seen there were some lines that I'd drawn on there. You press those down, and once that's done, you then start on the second set. So that was 13 purple blocks, and I now need to do 12 blue. So it's the same process for the blue arcs. You sew the arcs together in pairs, you sew the pairs together, and then you complete the final seam to make them into a ring. There's lots more pressing, which is always fun. I hate ironing, I never iron anything. You then obviously pin the blue arcs to the seafoam backing, and look at me go, it's suddenly, yep, here we go, Superwoman sewing again. I wish I could do it this fast, I wish. Yeah, sewing those down again with a 1/4 inch seam allowance, more spinning pizzas. Yeah, I clearly am hungry, I need to eat. Make sure that it's been thoroughly checked by your fabric fluffer, and which this set had been. I think Chiana preferred the blue set to the purple one. And yeah, lots and lots and lots of repetition, as I have mentioned. Top stitching done, it's ironing time again, and then I decided to get clever with the decorative stitching. I'm really glad that I persevered and did this, because I think it looks absolutely beautiful and really adds to the finished nature of the quilt. But I absolutely curse the day that I picked this one. Chiana doesn't, she clearly approves. The paw of approval, as you see. Yeah, this took forever. That first clip was speeded up 20 times. This is speeded up, I think, 40 times. That was long. Once the decorative stitching had been done, it was time to quilt. And yeah, quilting before you put your blocks together. Very exciting. This template came with the pattern book, and I thought it was beautiful. So I set about tracing it out. Once I'd traced it out, it was then time to make 25 copies. Mum very kindly gave me this tracing paper that she had in her stash. So I marked out the 12-inch squares that I needed, all 25 of them, chopped them apart, as you can see here, using paper scissors, not fabric shears, and then tried to pin them together. I think I did about 12 it at one time rather than trying to do the whole 25. This paper was fiddly and would not behave, so getting them all to lie flat so that I had a good chance of creating even templates was a whole bunch of fun. Again, this is speeded up about 20 times. But I finally got there, and then I took the bobbin out of my machine and proceeded to sew with an old blunt needle which I had loads of, and just to puncture all the way through the paper so that I had identical templates. Now my machine has a sensor on it that tells me if the bobbin thread breaks, and it will sew a total of 8 stitches before it stops and says, "Oi, you, thread's broken, you need to check." So I was having to sit there and count the stitches and get to 7, take my foot off the presser foot and then start again, because otherwise I'd have to keep pressing the screen to tell it that the thread hadn't broken. This is what I was intending. So one step that I haven't videoed for some reason or another is forming the internal squares, which is basically pressing the 12-inch block of the marbled batik around the 11.5-inch batting that I pre-cut and just pressing those down. It does say to stick them, which I did do for the first one, but I ended up gunking up my needle and I found that I didn't really, the fabric behaved itself as long as I pressed it well enough. So once they're all pinned down, you then start quilting. I decided to use blue fabric for the purple rings and not blue fabric, blue thread for the purple rings and purple thread for the blue rings. This was, to start with, a lot of fun peeling all this off. It got tedious very, very quickly, especially when the little bits of tracing paper wouldn't come out of the stitches. Now you can reduce the stitch length, which will perforate more of the paper, making it easier to tear off, but I didn't want to do that as I really liked the look that I was getting with the standard stitch length. Yeah, you have to do this 25 times, repetition, repetition, repetition. But the fun part's coming up, and this was the part that I was really, really, really looking forward to. As I think I've mentioned, I am a member of Embroidery Library, and they had a set called Floral Filigree, which had 40 different filigree floral patterns to choose from, and I had to pick 25, and given the colours palette that Natasha had given me, we went for the sort of blues, purples and a little bit of yellow. That was the test one that I did, and I absolutely loved the result. I was over the moon. It was exactly what I was hoping for. Then it dawned on me that I had 25 of these to do, and each one was taking around about 3 hours. Again, I wish it was as quick as it looks on the screen now. That would be brilliant. It looks like it's just being drawn on. I mean, my machine is quick, but still, it was around about 3 hours for each of these motifs. They are around about, I think they were 6.5 inches tall to about the same wide. I did have to finesse a few a little bit to make sure that they sat within the quilted pieces and wouldn't get covered up by the arcs when they got sewn down. So yeah, 25 different ones of these, and of course they needed to be checked by the fabric fluffer. I think she approves. Yeah, there's so much grey fur in this quilt, it's unbelievable. So once all of the different 25 blocks had been done, it was then time to work out whereabouts they were going to lay. So not only does this quilt have grey fluff in it, it now has Susie Ginger fluff in it, Ginger Terra fluff as we love to call her. This was my mum and dad's front room. I brought all the blocks in, moved their coffee table, and we basically spent about half an hour trying to work out where each different floral motif should go. Obviously we were constrained by they needed to be opposite blue and purple, and then I didn't want like 2 white flowers together, I didn't want 2 of the darker greens together, but we finally got a layout that we were happy with, which was great. So the next step is adding the scallops to the outer blocks and the corners to give the double wedding ring its scalloped look, which apparently it's not a double wedding ring if it has a straight edge, and it's an extra little step, but it does really make all the difference. So you saw me at the beginning of this very, very long video, well done if you've made it this far, cutting out the scallop edges, and you also, out of the 120 arcs, you set a few aside for the scallop piecing. So once the scallops were sewn down, I then needed to work out what I was going to do quilting wise for the inside of each of the arcs and the arcs themselves. So lots more decorative stitching. Again, cursing the day that I decided that was a good idea, but it really has made all the difference. And once I'd done the decorative stitching, I then spaced out 1-inch little lines to add just another detail to each of the arcs. Yeah, when I started this, I didn't really take into consideration that there was 120 of these bloody things on this quilt, but again, it's definitely been worthwhile doing. It just was incredibly repetitive. Yeah, definitely repetitive, but definitely worth it. I really love how it's turned out. So one of the things that I didn't feel very much of was once all the outer scallops and arcs are quilted down, you then pin each of the blocks together along the flap, as you can see at the bottom there, which isn't quilted down. You pin it to the next block along and then just sew it together. So I started this quilt back in the middle of January, thinking I would have it ready for a 2nd of February deadline. I have no idea what planner I thought I was working on, and I clearly am not the Flash, regardless of what this footage makes you think. In that interim between the January and June, when I finally finished the quilt, I actually opened up my shop. So I decided to work on it at the shop, which was really interesting. I had lots of people comment, you know, sort of like, oh, that's beautiful, how much would one of those cost? And it was really good to be able to say, I've spent this many hours on it because I've been filming it, so I know, and I charge this much per hour, so currently the running total is X, Y or Z. Generally they went a little bit green and kind of slunk off quite quickly, and funnily enough nobody made me an offer. In total I spent 7,492 minutes making this quilt, which equates to 125 hours or 5.2 full days. I couldn't quite believe that when I added it up. It was a little bit scary. So I charge £15 an hour for my time, which means this quilt was £1,873 just for the time spent making it. That's not including any of the fabrics, thread or patterns bought, which ends up with a total over £2,000, which is definitely scary. Now obviously this is a present for my best friend. It's her 40th birthday present, and there can be no monetary value attached to that. This is an heirloom piece, it's made with love, and hopefully it will be with her for a very long time. As much as I've said it's a repetitive process, I have at least 4 or 5 more quilts planned, so yeah, maybe not full making of videos, but you can definitely expect to see more of those in my future. Anyway, if you've made it to this part of the video, thank you ever so much for watching. If you've enjoyed it, please give it a thumbs up. If you haven't yet, please subscribe, and I shall see you again very soon. Bye!